end. The movie never seems to end as it relates to the IRS. Let me just relay an experience that I had, and it echoes a theme that he articulated, and it was brought to my attention by an IRS employee a few months ago. As the Commissioner knows, when I became chairman of the subcommittee, I asked to have just a meeting with the exempt unit employees in Cincinnati, and I went down and just had kind of a town hall meeting discussion. No press, no big hoopla, but I went in and had a discussion, took one staff person with me, and the diplomats would call it a frank discussion, shall we say. But it was pretty forthright, and it was right after we had moved a big package of legislation. You remember, we all moved a bunch of IRS reform bills. There was a package of them that came out of the committee, I think unanimously, and we were on the floor and so forth. And one of the employees at the IRS in Cincinnati raised his hand, and he asked Mr. Rangel's question. But it was phrased up a different way. He said, "When does it end? When is enough enough? I heard your statements on YouTube. I saw your comments, Congressman, on the floor of the House of Representatives. When does it end?" And I said, look, part of the charm of the American public, one of the things that's really a great feature of the United States, and one of our characteristics that I find so endearing, is we are quick to forgive. The American public is quick to forgive. It's a quick to give people a second chance. But the key to being forgiven is to ask for forgiveness and to acknowledge that there's been a problem. And I think the weakness, the disconnect with this whole scene is this reluctance on the part of the Internal Revenue Service to acknowledge that targeting happened. So there's still words like alleged and so forth. And it's like, hey, enough already. Just come clean and admit that it happened, and then we're able to turn the page. So a more provocative question, I would say, is not when does the movie end, but really when did the movie start? And the movie started when the IRS targeted people based on their application. And then the second reel of the movie was put on when we learned through the work of this committee that the IRS was manipulating, and it was Lois Lerner that was manipulating and bigfooting a process saying, I'm going to decide who gets audited here. And now the movie continues. We're on the third reel because the GAO, at our request, has said, this hasn't gone away. And so, Commissioner, my question to you is, you asserted earlier that this is a hypothetical risk. So you've heard all of the members of the committee we're of one mind in that nobody wants this to happen. Mr. Lewis said that in his opening statement. Mr. Rangel said that. The Republicans said that essentially nobody wants this to happen. You asserted that this was a hypothetical risk, and yet we asked the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration about various complaints. And so from 2013 to present, TITCA has investigated 102 complaints from tax-exempt organizations who believe that they were unfairly targeted. Of those 12 cases were referred to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation. And keep in mind, this doesn't mean that TITCA didn't find problems with the other 102 cases, but it does mean that TITCA said, we find that a threshold, and a very high threshold, as you know, of criminality has been triggered here, and we are referring these to the Department of Justice. Were you aware of that? Is this news to you? And can you give me your state of mind as to that information?
Yes, actually, we meet regularly with the Inspector General at a high level to review what's going on. They have advised us of investigations. They regularly encourage the public to, and we do too, if you have a question, feel free to refer it to the Inspector General. They advised us and continue to advise us. In those reviews, they have found no evidence in any of the reviews thus far, the information we've got from them, that there was improper exam selection. They do not tell us if they refer for whatever other reasons there are cases to justice for review, but as a general matter, as we've reviewed things, they have brought no case to our attention where there has been unfair exam selection in the exempt organization area.
Well,
but they'll have to speak for themselves. That's all.
Right, fair enough.
That's what they've advised me. But they do not advise us, and it's not appropriate they would, about individual cases. We don't know the details of anyone, and we don't know the details of what their referrals are to the Justice Department. That's what they need to have between them and the Justice Department. So they
Okay,
do
what
not
they've
give us-
communicated to us, just to close the loop on this line of inquiry, what they've communicated to us is, look, there's a criminal activity going on here. They've made a criminal referral a dozen times based on the audit process. So we've got to get to the bottom of that. Because
the IG can tell you that. All I can tell you is we've been advised that in those cases, the 112, whatever number it is, and we get our regular meetings, they have not found that anyone improperly selected anyone for an audit.
You would acknowledge, though, if they did, then that wouldn't be hypothetical.
That's right, if they did that, but they have not told us that. Our point about hypothetical is not to say we shouldn't implement the procedures. Our point is to say, goes back to the point about reassuring the public, at this point, we do not have indications that anyone improperly was selected for an exam. We have good recommendations from GAO on how to make sure, do more to make sure that doesn't happen as we go forward, and we're delighted to implement those recommendations. We can never be too good. We need to continue to review our processes, but I think it is important for the public to understand that in this review, and in the review by the outside risk manager we brought in, there was no evidence of bias in the selection process.
So just to be clear, and so that we've got the record clear, the TIDCA does an investigation when someone is complained against. So they will, when someone comes and says, look, I think I'm being unfairly targeted by the IRS, I'm an exempt group, TIDCA does an investigation of that.
They do investigations for a variety of things. Somebody could complain that they've been threatened. Someone can complain they've been attempted to be extorted. There are a lot of complaints beyond simply, I was improperly selected. All of those complaints are reviewed. TIDCA does an excellent job of following through. We think it's an important process, but they are not simply, I was selected, I'm a tax-exempt organization, I was badly selected. There are a lot of claims taxpayers make, and they deserve to be investigated. And to the extent that there are criminal activities which can run the gamut from extortion, from bribery, from whatever else might be going on, improper use of information, TIDCA then refers those to the Justice Department for consideration, and we think that's appropriate.
So your conclusion is that the TIDCA referrals, the dozen criminal referrals, are not for audit selection, therefore another bad act. Is that right?
That's my understanding from the general information we get from the IRS. From TIDCA. They're careful not to give us details, and we're careful not to ask for details. But as a general matter, they have said they have not found in those interviews and in those reviews any indication that people improperly were selecting or targeting audits for review.
Okay, we've got to get to the bottom of that. Mr. Meehan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner. It's always great to have you here, and I appreciate your candor before our committee. But this